Thank you very much for coming out tonight. We're going to start in just one moment. Good? Welcome. Thank you all for being here. I call this regular meeting of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission to order on Monday, January 5, 2026 at about 6:35 p.m. My name is Jeff Kennedy. I'm the chair of the Woodbridge Town Plan and Zoning Commission. Other members of the commission with us tonight are Paul Schatz, Ben Cherry, Aaron Hoffman, Andrew Skolnick, Robert Wisnia, Kathleen Hunter, and Jim Horowitz. Thank you, commission members, for being with us this evening. Kathy, would you confirm who's being seated tonight? Chris, would you please confirm? Sorry. Who's being seated?
No one is being seated because all 6 members are here.
Oh, okay, very good. Thank you. This evening, we're ably supported by the resourceful Chris Sullivan, our town land use analyst and zoning enforcement. It's nice to see you all. We're meeting in the senior cafe of the Central Building, a very packed cafe. Our agenda this evening is available on the town website, which was previously published. Our agenda items include a public hearing on a commission proposed change to the town zoning regulations to revert or return the opportunity housing language in the provisions included prior to the changes adopted on December 2nd, 2024. We also plan to have a work session regarding the potential change and review some other commission matters that are listed on the agenda that you have. We're going to, at this point, move into the public hearing for the zoning change. This public hearing is for the purpose of listening to your comments. You will each have up to about 3 minutes for your brief statements to read into the record. This is a narrow hearing specific to the amendment at hand, which is a reversion or return of the housing regs to what they were previously before December 2nd, 2024. Your public comments and written comments that were submitted to the town will become part of the public record and will be taken into consideration by the Town Planning and Zoning Commission as we move through our work session and make decisions based on the material that comes in. Please keep your comments brief and focused on the proposed reversion, avoiding unreasonable repetition so that we can have more of our neighbors speak to each other and everybody gets a chance to speak. Okay? So with that, I would invite the first person to come up and speak as our public hearing is open.
Mr. Chairman, we should just know the written items discussed.
Okay. You want me to do that now?
Yes,
Go.
the first 2 are super important because this was referred to the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments and also to the Regional Planning Commission of the South Central Regional Planning Council of Governments, and we received comments back from both of them, as well as from a number of residents within town.
Okay. What Chris is referring to is that material has already come into the commission in written form or via email. So we received 25 different pieces of information or emails or letters. So I understand I have to read this, correct? Into the record, right?
Just read down the list.
Yep. Okay. So we've received comments dated November 12, 2025 from the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments. We received comments dated December 12, 2025 from the Regional Planning Commission of the South Central Regional Council of Governments. We have an email dated December 30, 2025 from Cheryl Weber of 19 Hickory Lane, Woodbridge. We have an email dated December 30, 2025 from Lynn Drozen. We have an email dated December 31st, 2025 from Mike Byrne of Cage Mike's Naturally Grown Company, 44 Newton Road, also Woodbridge. We have an email dated December 31st, 2025 from B. Patrick Madden, 258 Newton Road, Woodbridge. We have an email dated December 31st, 2025 from Dave Rifkin of 1249 Racebrook Road, Woodbridge. We have an email dated January 1, 2026 from Mr. Matthew Casiello. And I apologize if I misread anybody's name as I go through that. We have an email dated January 1st, 2026 from Rosalind Chosick. Email dated January 2nd, 2026 from Lynn Drazen. An emailed letter dated January 2nd, 2026 from Kathy Wick with 18-page attachment of the application to amend the town of Woodbridge zoning regulations that was originally submitted in May of 2025 by Stephen Mason. We have an email dated January 4th, 2026 from Matt Russ, 14 Cornfield Lane, Woodbridge. We have an email dated January 3rd, 2026 from William Barberi, 16 Hillcrest Drive. We have an email dated January 4th, 2026 from Dave Cornelius, 5 Chestnut Lane, also in Woodbridge. We have an email dated January 4th, 2026 from Elizabeth McVitie, 60 Dogwood Circle, Woodbridge. We have an email dated January 5, 2026 from James McVitie, also of 60 Dogwood Circle, and also Woodbridge. Email dated January 5, 2026 from Kenneth Colabella from 895 Baldwin Road, Woodbridge. Email dated January 5, 2026 from Andrew L. Colabella, 895 Baldwin Road. Email dated January 5, 2026 from Gary Whitford of 104 Seymour Road. We have an email dated January 5, 2026 from Nancy Clark, 46 Rimmon Road, with an attachment and letter dated January 5, 2026. We have an email dated January 5, 2026 from J. DeMayo, J. DeMayo of 28 Dogwood Circle. We have an email dated January 5, 2026 from Jean DeMayo of also 28 Dogwood Circle. We have an email dated January 5, 2026 from Brett Calistro, 838 Fountain Street. We have an email dated January 5, 2026 from Elizabeth Wickforth. And we have a letter dated January 5, 2026 from Sidney Gibbons of 237 Pick Hill Road. So those were the hearing exhibits for TPC amendments to zoning regulation, all of which were dated as of the date of this hearing for January 5, 2026. You good, Trish?
I'm good.
All right, thank you. All right, so with that said, we have a podium to my left, and if people would like to come up and make some comments, we're going to give people about 3 minutes of
Sign
time.
in too.
Yeah, thank you. 3 minutes of
You're
time to talk. Appreciate it, Paul. Nice to see you.
You too.
And if you would write in your name and address on the sign-in sheet, that will then coordinate with the public record.
I'm also fully fed, for the record, because they didn't want to make fun of you for not providing food for everybody, again.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Mason. I own the property at 815 Fountain Street. I am an abutter to the project in question. Tonight, I will address the fire chief's recent comments on the consequent uninsurability of the project or any similar project under the new regs, and the potential liability of the town, the individual members of this commission, and others arising out of the current circumstances. I'm a retired lawyer. For 27 years, I practiced environmental law and related insurance coverage. My primary two clients were Chevron Corporation and Air Liquide America. Air Liquide is the second largest producer of industrial gases in the world, with annual revenues of 27 billion euros. It's based in Paris, France. I prosecuted substantial insurance claims for Air Liquide, including actions against underwriters at Lloyd's, London, practicing in London under the Hague Convention rules. In 2016, I took a position with Riverstone Claims Management, the insurance analysis arm of Fairfax Financial Holdings, a multinational insurance conglomerate based in Canada. In this capacity, I performed quantitative insurance risk analysis for some of the largest Superfund sites in the United States. This included the Portland Harbor Superfund site and the Passaic River Superfund site. The remedies for those sites are each estimated to cost between $3 and $4 billion. During my career, I guest lectured on Superfund at UCLA Law School, published articles on environmental insurance, as well as other subjects. I will state my comments tonight from my own perspective, were I a lawyer advising the town in respect of the current situation. I.e., the fire chief has testified that the Woodbridge Fire Department has neither the equipment nor the personnel to handle fire or other calamity on the upper floors of the project in question, or similar projects. First, I would be aware of my fiduciary duty to advise candidly. I would also be aware that failure to advise properly could place me in jeopardy for malpractice. I would advise the town that under the present circumstances, the town will be unable to obtain insurance to cover its liability for bodily injury or property damage arising out of a fire or other calamity at the apartment complex or a similar complex. The town would be required to disclose to its insurance carriers that its fire department is without the capability of handling fires or other calamities on the upper floors of the complex. I would advise that the insurance carriers will then endorse the town's policies with an express exclusion for all liability arising out of occurrences taking place on the upper floors of the complexes. Failure to disclose this defect would lead to any claim submitted by the town or members of this commission being denied by the insurance carriers on grounds of something like the loss in progress or the known loss defenses, or, worse yet, fraudulent concealment. I would advise the town that such disclosures would also be required of the owner and landlord of the complex, both to its insurance carriers and to any prospective tenants. I would advise that the owner of the complex should make the same disclosures to its lenders. In the event of bodily injury or property damage, it is almost certain that a plaintiff's lawyer will sue everyone connected with approval and construction of the project. This will include the town and the individual members of the TPZ. Absent a reconstituted fire department, the town and the TPZ members could be held liable for any losses sustained. I would advise the town and the individual members of the commission that they would have to cover the costs of the defense out of their own pockets. We all know what legal fees cost. They can be bankrupting. This says nothing of paying an actual judgment for property damage, bodily injury, death, and possible punitive damages for which there would be no insurance coverage. The infamous Grenfell apartment fire of 2017 in England is an apt template for the kind of liability that occurs when governmental entities approve projects hastily. When the following query was made online, were any town or municipal persons held liable for the 2017 Grenfell fire, AI gave the following response. Yes, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, the local authority, was found liable in civil court for the deaths of some residents, admitting failures in fire safety and breaching its duty of care, leading to a large settlement for survivors and victims' families.
Mr. Mason, thank you. If you could
come
finish
on.
up your comment. Come on here. And also, hold on, is this written? Did you write that?
Yes, I did.
We would like
I'm
to
just
get
about
that.
finished, all right?
Okay, Mr. Mason, this isn't about the commission, this is about all our neighbors that want to be heard. Thank you. Thank you.
The answer was yes. The Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, the local authority, was found liable in civil court for the deaths of some residents, admitting failures in fire safety and breaching its duty of care, leading to a large settlement for survivors and victims' families, though criminal charges against individuals are still pending after the inquiry. The lengthy inquiry identified systemic failures by local council management, government, and manufacturers, but criminal prosecutions involving municipal persons have not yet resulted in convictions. I would urge every member of the TPZ to read the entire Wikipedia page on the Grenfell fire. Multiple new investigations were commenced in that case just this year. Thank you.
Mr. Mason, would you like to submit that?
Mr. Mason, you'd like to
Mr.
submit that?
Mason, would you like to submit
yes.
that, please? And I would just note for the record that this is a hearing on regulation changes. This is not a hearing on 804 Fountain Street. And that was decided on December 18th. So what you're hearing tonight are proposed changes to the zoning regulations to go back to what they were prior to the changes that were adopted last December.
Right, and if
So
you
if
fail
you-
to do that,
excuse
and you
me.
authorize other buildings, you will face the exact same hazards that I iterated in that. in
Mr.
that
Mason,
document.
thank you for making your point, which we understand. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Robert George, and I and my wife Catherine George are here to oppose the zoning changes. I'm a 10-year resident of Woodbridge with over 25 years of emergency services experience. I'm a nationally registered paramedic, a Connecticut EMS instructor, a certified firefighter, and a hazardous materials technician. I recently established Tier 1 Medical Training, which is an emergency preparedness training and consulting business based right here out of Woodbridge. I'm speaking in my personal capacity and on behalf of my business based here in Woodbridge regarding emergency services and infrastructure concerns related to the proposed zoning regulations. To be very clear, these are technical concerns and not political arguments. I'm focused on operational realities that affect public safety and infrastructure capacity only. A multi-unit 4-story building and 18 unit per acre is a major escalation from Woodbridge's current single-family profile and is not comparable to our extended care facilities or our nursing facilities due to the absence of staff that is trained to respond and assist in emergencies. From an EMS perspective, 4-story buildings will generate many more medical calls weekly, with some potentially requiring rapid transport. Multi-story buildings complicate access, particularly for elderly and mobility impaired residents, increasing on-scene time and complicating patient extrication, especially here in Woodbridge, where our EMS services are especially limited. From a fire service perspective, multi-story residential emergencies require a substantial number of personnel to effective operations. State and NFPA standards for high-rise incidents require multiple attack teams, multiple search and rescue teams, multiple ventilation teams, water supply teams, and ladder teams, to name a few resource demands that will challenge any size department, even the FDNY. Mutual aid agreements, while valuable, cannot substitute for adequate initial response capabilities in time-sensitive multi-story emergencies. Woodbridge's infrastructure varies significantly across the town. While some areas have municipal water and sewer access, much of Woodbridge relies on individual septic and well. This creates a patchwork of infrastructure capacity that must be considered in townwide zoning decisions. High-density multifamily developments in areas without municipal sewer generate, on average, 14,000 gallons of wastewater a day, using an example of a 4-story, 96-unit building. Nearly double that of the 7,500 gallon per day threshold where Connecticut DEEP oversight begins. Such development requires favorable soil conditions. Connecticut case law consistently holds the infrastructure capacity restraints, including emergency services, sewer and water availability, that they constitute valid grounds for denying development applications under CGS 8-30G. Infrastructure capacity represents a recognized health and safety concern that outweighs affordable housing needs. The key concern is that townwide zoning regulations must account for these infrastructure variations, regulations that enable high-density development without regard to whether adequate infrastructure exists, creating risks in areas that lack municipal services. In my conclusion, I'm right at my 3 minutes. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Connecticut's 830G law is a blunt instrument that doesn't adequately account for communities with limited infrastructure capacity. However, case law recognizes that infrastructure constraints can constitute valid grounds for denying development applications. My wife and I please urge this commission to base decisions on comprehensive infrastructure analysis and public safety implications, not just housing project targets. Other Connecticut towns have satisfied these requirements through thoughtful, proactive planning that accounts for infrastructure capacity, and I believe that Woodbridge has the ability to do the same. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Chairman, can we just clarify for everyone one more time? Mr. George's comments sounded like they were in favor of the current question, which is to revert. Just want to make sure everybody's on the same page when we say
Yes.
support or deny. So thank you.
Excuse me, just one moment. I think Venture brought up a good point. Just say when you start speaking, if you're in favor of reversing. Yeah.
No.
All right. That way, we didn't hear the first part of it.
I'm sure you can figure it out.
I'm sure.
And if you can't, maybe you don't belong sitting here. I'm Dave Vogel. I live at 1108 Johnson Road. You should already have this in your packet. It was submitted to Town Hall on December 12th. Please be advised that on December 9th, 2025, the Woodbridge Republican Town Committee unanimously adopted the following motion. Woodbridge Republican Town Committee wholeheartedly supports the proposed amendments to the Opportunity Housing Regulations for Residence Zone A that are the subject of this meeting. We applaud the TPZ's decision to reconsider the Commission's misguided vote of December 2nd, 2004. The Opportunity Housing Regulation changes of December 2nd, 24, were passed without any input from town residents due to ineffective notice to the public of the TPZ's proposal. Further, the regulation changes of December 2nd, 2024 were passed at the request of a specific developer for a specific parcel without any consideration by the TPZ of one, alternative opportunity housing regulation amendments, or two, the impact of proposing regulatory changes for the entire residence zone A simply to accommodate the development interest of a single developer for a specific parcel. Subsequent public comment to the Board of Selectmen and TPZ has made it clear that residents do not support the December 2nd, 2024 regulation changes. Adoption of the regulation amendments that are the subject of this public hearing will afford TPZ members the much-needed opportunity to thoroughly review the opportunity housing regulations of other Connecticut communities and of all the zones within Woodbridge so as to develop a coherent and cohesive plan for opportunity housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Amy Morella. I timed myself at 3 minutes 45 seconds. So I hope you will allow me the extra 45 seconds. 18 months ago, on July 1st, 2024, this Town Plan and Zoning Commission, as well as the Ad Hoc Housing Committee, met with David Fink, a pro-housing consultant for the Regional Council of Governments. The meeting was recorded and is available on YouTube. Of note, Mr. Fink said, quote, "My advice generally is that if you have housing needs you decide you want to address, you have to do that slowly. Residents need to understand and they need a chance to understand. That's fair," end quote. Mr. Fink specifically recommended, quote, "to go slow and you need to listen to people," end quote. Instead of heeding Mr. Fink's expert advice, this commission, just 5 months later, adopted radical changes to the opportunity housing regulations without any input from the public. Further, you made these changes at the request of a developer for a specific parcel, but cavalierly applied them throughout most of our town. I fully agree with all the points made in the Stephen Mason application that was presented to the TPZ on May 5th, 2025, when there was an initial effort by residents to revert back to the regulations of December 1, 2024. And I want especially to emphasize that it was illogical and damaging for the TPZ to reduce the minimum percentage of affordable units in opportunity housing. The state's laws are focused on the percentage of a town's housing that qualifies as legally affordable. If you increase the amount of market housing and reduce the associated percentage of affordable units required, you make it harder for our town to make progress in improving the percent of our total housing that is legally affordable. Moreover, our town shouldn't encourage a lot of construction of market rate housing of any kind, as our ratio of housing to commercial property is already out of whack, placing more tax burden on homeowners. Instead of the current illogical scheme, we should focus on making progress in affordable housing while minimizing market rate housing increases and improving our commercial tax base. How do we do that? Here's advice from another expert who addressed our community on April 30th, 2025. Again, there's a video. At a panel presentation organized by the Ad Hoc Housing Committee, Ms. Phoebe Plouffe from the nonprofit LISC emphasize the importance of towns focusing on developing housing that works for their residents. I should have said quote, developing housing that works for their residents and that their residents have had buy-in in the process, end quote. She then continued, quote, it's important that the projects you are developing are not a shock to the system to people or a stark difference from the existing stock in the area. It's important that you create housing that is fitting in, where you can almost drive by and not even notice, end quote. Ms. Plouffe went on to describe 3 housing projects in Kent, Barkhamsted, and Madison that are mostly or 100% affordable. You can see Ms. Plouffe's remarks at the videos, minutes 35 through 50. Our state government has just adopted a new law regarding housing known as HB 8002. This commission and all of us in town need time to learn what that new law requires and importantly what it doesn't require our town to do. In the past, there's been a lot of misstatements about housing mandates. By restoring the opportunity housing regulations that existed prior to December 2, 2024, you will give your commission, the new Housing Commission, the Board of Selectmen, and the public the time that we all need to craft a response to HB 8002 that works for our town. Notably, in your own POCD survey of July 2024, residents ranked open space and schools the highest when asked, quote, what is special about life in Woodbridge, end quote. Please step back and work with others, most importantly town residents, to craft opportunity housing regulations that meet state law while preserving what residents value most. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jesse Cedarbaum. I live at 16 Old Barnabas Road. And I don't have a lot of technical stuff to say. I'm going to speak essentially in favor of reversion and put a subjective note on what the previous speakers have said. 50 years ago, when I was a medical student living in an apartment in Westville, I got on my bicycle one day and I rode up Fountain Street. I rode under a bridge and there were woods. 50 years later, as a professor at Yale, I drive home under that same bridge and there are woods and I am in Woodbridge and I am home. And I try to imagine what that would be like if sitting right there at the entrance to our fair town, there was a square boxy apartment building like I see out of my window from my office at Yale. Our homes are our refuge, and we want them to be safe, and we want our town to be protected from visual and environmental onslaughts and dangers like you heard in the fire thing. I'm going up the road, slippery conditions. What happens if somebody comes dashing out of a parking lot behind that bridge, slams into me? Kaboom. The zoning regulation change affects the properties opposite Beecher School. What if the same thing happens to a child leaving Beecher School? So I think what I'm saying is these regulations have impact on people's lives and the community that we built. We have opportunities, as you just heard, to plan prospectively. The downtown area, which has been slowly morphing, provides one such opportunity. A large tract of land was just turned over to luxury housing. But this is an area where there's infrastructure, where there's public transport, where there's ease of access for emergency personnel, and there's an opportunity, for example, to defray costs of housing by building multi-story buildings with commercial space on the ground floor that can help reduce rents and make the space more affordable. So finally, I'm wondering, everybody in this town, this is a decision that affects everybody in the town. Maybe we could answer this question directly and put it to the population of Woodbridge in a public, open referendum. Do we want these changes, or do we want the laws to stay as they were? Thank you.
table over there for the sign.
Hello. My name is Bronwyn Lewandowski, and I am here to request a review and revision of the changes made to our town's planning and zoning framework. Changes that allowed the approval of the development proposed at 804 Fountain Street, directly across the street from my home. I want to be clear, I am not opposed to housing or responsible development. I am opposed to a process that disregards public safety and undermines the integrity of our town and its zoning laws. In order for a project of this size and intensity to be approved on a steep and impractical site, long-standing planning and zoning standards were altered and reinterpreted in ways that effectively changed what was previously allowed. These changes were not accompanied by the clear public explanation or meaningful public notice, despite its significant negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood. The result was that zoning rules originally designed to protect safety and guide responsible growth were effectively rewritten to accommodate a single egregious project with disregard for public safety. The weight of these consequences is not theoretical. Multiple qualified experts, including engineers, ecologists, and the fire chief, have raised serious and unresolved public safety concerns related to this development. These include fire access and emergency response for high-density, multi-story building on a steep, narrow ridgeline, as well as environmental and stormwater risks. These are documented findings by qualified professionals whose responsibility is to protect public safety and the environment. Instead of resolving those risks, the regulatory framework itself was adjusted to allow the project to advance. That is not responsible ethical planning. It is prioritizing approval over safety. Planning and zoning laws exist to protect the public and ensure that growth does not place residents or first responders in harm's way. When those laws are quietly altered or selectively applied to enable a predetermined outcome, public trust is eroded and real danger is created. Responsible governance requires more than procedural compliance. For these reasons, I respectfully request that the town formally review and revise the recent surreptitious planning and zoning changes that enabled this approval. This is not about stopping progress. It is about restoring transparency, accountability, and commitment to public safety. Thank you for your time.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cynthia Gibbons, 237 Peck Hill Road. I just want to say thank you, everyone, and I appreciate your time, your effort, all members of boards and commissions, of the dedication that you take for the town of Woodbridge. But I believe all elected and appointed members of boards and commissions have an obligation to our town residents to ensure the safety and well-being of all. In my view, we must investigate all potential risks as it relates to the safety and well-being of our town. We have a code of ethics to abide by, and I quote, where each elected or appointed official or employee of the town, whether or not he is compensated for his services by the town, shall, in general, discharge the duties of his office or employment in a manner calculated to serve the best interests of the town and its citizens in accordance with the highest standards of morality, ethics, and good conscience, end quote. With that, and I suggest and urge you to go back to prior to actually my birthday, 12/1/2024. Please go back, revert the language back to that date. I believe it's our obligation to protect our town residents, to be thoughtful and provide a meaningful and appropriate review of our zoning regulations in order to make decisions that are sensible to this entire town of Woodbridge. Thank you.
My name's Kathy Wick. I live on Rimmen Road. Last week, I resubmitted to this board the written presentation of the Mason application that was rejected by you last May. It is 18 pages, but I hope you have had a chance to reread it. As you recall, that application asks that you amend the opportunity housing regulations in precisely the same way that is being contemplated tonight. I'm glad you've decided to revisit the matter at this time and hope that the opposite outcome will be the result. Of course, the original opportunity housing regulations are far from ideal, and reverting to them tonight is meant to be the first step in a complete overhaul. When thinking about how to rework Woodbridge's opportunity housing regulations, I hope you will look carefully at other towns that have been successful in creating more housing diversity. I've spent considerable time reading the zoning regulations from other towns and have some suggestions to offer. I look closely at New Haven, Orange, Hamden, Guilford, and Woodbury. Each town offers different zoning schemes that we can learn from. In all of those towns, height for multifamily housing in a residential zone is capped at 2.5 stories, the same height cap as for single family. That's true even in the city of New Haven. In none of those towns is density of even 15 units per acre allowed in a residential zone. For instance, in Hamden, not exactly a farming community these days, multifamily housing is only allowed adjacent to commercial areas and is capped at 7 units per acre. In Guilford, 8 units per acre is allowed, but to earn that density, a developer must offer 30% affordable units. This is only 2 times the single-family density of 4 units per acre in the underlying single-family zone in that area. Across the Parkway in New Haven, multifamily can be 12 units per acre, but that is only 2 times the underlying single-family density. The neighborhood right adjacent to the Parkway in New Haven, the underlying density is 6 units per acre, so they only allow you to double it. Compare this to Woodbridge's current regulations, which allow 27 times the density in the underlying zone. Reverting to the previous regulations in Woodbridge's Zone A still creates very high density relative to the neighborhood, in that 15 units per acre is 23 times the underlying density in Zone A. I want to focus on our closest neighbor, Orange, since Orange has actually achieved a significant amount of affordable housing under extremely restrictive regulations. Its most recent affordable development is Lascana Homes, and I printed out a picture. This kind of looks like the Toll Brothers on Bradley Road. It's very attractive. It is a brand new, very attractive, 100% affordable development in Orange. It actually looks like Toll Brothers. The 46 units are located 1 block off the Post Road on a 4.2-acre parcel. It was built by a private developer on private land. In Orange, multifamily housing is not allowed to exceed 2.5 stories in a residential area. Individual developments are capped at 5 acres and 50 units, so no more than 10 units per acre. They are also severely restricted in location, only allowed on a couple of specific streets adjacent to the Post Road. The minimum percentage of affordable units required is 30%. So Orange has much more restrictive zoning, but has achieved 7% affordable housing and just was recently awarded a 4-year moratorium on 830G applications. If those are also our goals, and I believe they are, we would be smart to imitate Orange's approach. Thoughtful, proactive planning and strong leadership can produce the desired result. The Lascana approach is exactly what all of the experts the Housing Committee has brought into town over the years would agree is the type of development that makes sense for Woodbridge. Its existence in our neighboring town proves that it is possible if you as a board, with robust input from the public, thoughtfully craft regulations that benefit our town and its future new residents, instead of allowing profit-seeking developers to write our regulations for us.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Adam Lewandowski, and I live at 811 Fountain Street. I do not know what I can say that has not already been stated. I could reiterate the multitude of problems that the Fountain Street project presents: environmental impacts, safety regulations, burdens to the school system, increasing traffic, and tax liabilities. But all these issues have been presented to you members of the board multiple times by multiple people, ranging from the experts the interveners have had present to the town's residents speaking out against this project. At this point, it seems that the town's concerns are falling on deaf ears, that we are screaming into the void and it is fruitless. But if speaking into the void is our only course of action, we must do so until we are heard. You have granted the developers of this project special exemptions and special permitting that you would not have granted a resident of this town. You have changed the zoning laws. This is where I take the most issue. You are not here to serve the interest of developers. You are here to serve the interest of the town. Spoke out against this project and the zoning changes. I think it is time for you to listen to your constituents. I think it is time for you to vote in the interest of this town's residents and not in the interest of developers abroad. These changes to zoning should have never been made. Please vote to reverse the zoning changes. Vote to represent the voices of this town.
Happy New Year. I'm actually going to turn just to face you folks because I feel like that's who I'm talking to. Also, I'm going to say I'm feeling under the weather, Mr. Chair, so I'm doing my best not to demonstrate that, and so I'm going to speak slowly and thoughtfully. I just appreciate that you understand that. Thank you all. My name is Diana McCarthy Burkeri. I am a resident at 18 Ranch Road in this wonderful community. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for reopening the discussion and for giving the community the opportunity to be heard. That decision alone reflects your commitment to transparency and doing what is right for our town. Like many residents, I was surprised to learn about the zoning changes that were adopted back in December 2024. But my surprise was not only as a resident and a neighbor, but also as the co-chair of the Conservation Commission. The regulation changes directly impact our environment, our open space, and the Conservation Commission was not informed or consulted prior to. And I learned of these changes only after they had been adopted, which was deeply concerning, not as a criticism, but as a matter of my own responsibility and process. Public service is often underappreciated. And I recognize the countless volunteer hours that all of you have spent away from your families and doing other things you probably enjoy more. But this work is really important. And I trust that each of you voted on these regulations and on Fountain Street the way that you thought was in the best interest of our town. I trust that your decision to reopen this matter is also in that same good faith. Process matters, especially when decisions have long-term environmental and community-wide impacts. I also want to acknowledge something personally. Speaking out against this process was not popular with some of our local politicians and leaders, but I believed then, as I believe now, that it's the right thing to do. I raised concerns about the lack of transparency and public involvement, even knowing that it would come at a cost. And that decision ultimately led to my excommunication from the Woodbridge Democratic Town Committee. And this is my last day as co-chair of the Conservation Commission for the town. I share that not for sympathy, but to be clear that I am here on principle and not on politics. Across our country and our state and even in our community, there are political strategies that move faster than public understanding. Terms like opportunity housing are used in ways that sound benign, even noble, and yet obscure the true impact of what is being proposed. This is not a game of chess where residents are to be outmaneuvered. This is our home. Andrew, Ben, Aaron, Jeff, Paul, Jim, we are all just commissioners and residents, but we are also neighbors and friends. We raise our children here together, we hike the same trails, and we greet each other at concerts on the green. We chose Woodbridge because of what it is and not because of what someone else thinks it should become. What makes a small town strong is not that everyone agrees, but that we are heard. Everyone is heard. By reopening this decision, you created space for transparency, trust, and collaboration. The response from the community has been overwhelmingly clear. Residents want to reverse the zoning changes. I agree. Many of you have acknowledged the lack of broader community participation and notice was a mistake, and I commend you for recognizing that. This is not failure, this is course correction. Albert Einstein said, "A person who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new." Tonight you have the opportunity to overturn those regulation changes and recommit to a process that includes public engagement and the involvement of all relevant commissioners from the start. I also want to be very clear about this. The Conservation Commission and its members and myself for the rest of the 24 hours that I'm still here, along with other folks in town, want to support you moving forward. We want to collaborate and we want to help shape the zoning regulations that balance our housing needs with environmental protection and preserve the character of our town. This is not about resisting change, it's about doing it together and doing it right. Thank you for your time and your service and for listening.
Hi everyone, I'm Peter Morgan. I live at 52 Rimmon Road with my wife, where we raised our 2 kids. I'm late to this game. Maybe like a lot of people, didn't really know what was going on. And I think that says something that a lot of us can agree with. But not too long ago, I got a notice about the 27 Beecher development. Have you heard about that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right, you've heard about that. I hope more people have heard about that. We were surprised how many people didn't know, of course, when we found out. Particularly galling to me because the person who's proposing that development had come to me before asking if he could purchase most of the 11 acres that we have, part of which abuts the 27 Beecher, because he said he wanted to farm that land. I was very interested in talking to him about that, even though I was not interested in selling the land. I would be very happy to have him lease the land or even just use it, and let me enjoy having some livestock on the property. But that's not what the intention was, doesn't seem to be. And as you can tell, that got me pretty upset. When we moved here to Woodbridge about 20 years ago, one of the hopes, among other things, was to not have to be involved in town politics.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, exactly, and to let other people who want to do it, thank you, for doing it. And there were a few times when I thought maybe that wasn't going to be the case, I would have to get involved. But then when we've had referendum on things like this, about major developments, about the country club, the town has spoken so clearly, so overwhelmingly against these developments that it doesn't matter, the political makeup in terms of national politics, right? Part of coming to a place like Woodbridge is to think that local things matter more than national politics. Doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican, we're working together here for our community. And so I don't even know if I understand, all of these things so well, what's going on, but my read of the amendment that I saw online was, it doesn't even make any sense. If the point is to increase affordable housing, right, you can't have a thing that allows basically not really increasing the percent of affordable housing. It just absolutely doesn't make sense, so please reverse that. Thank you. Got a couple of notepads. If anybody wants to put their name and email and cell phone number, we're just trying to keep everybody informed about 27 Beecher y'all probably will be anyway, but we're gonna send her around. Thank you.
I'm going to make 3 quick points during our public hearing. I just wanted to get on the record with 3 quick things, and we'll hear from the next speaker, but I just want to make 3 points. So just a factual comment. I have not read or reviewed yet the application that has come in for Beecher Road. Okay, I haven't looked at it. That is something called an 830G application, and that application exists sort of outside of our regular zoning application that we have here in town. And 830G applications are allowed by the state of Connecticut to come in when there is not enough affordable housing according to certain state laws. So 830G applications don't apply to what we're debating tonight. And we do have this one that has come into the town, and we can possibly expect others that come in as well. But that's something to check out and look at and do a little research on, but I know many of you are already well aware of that. Point number 2, at 8:30 we're going to take a break. I'm just announcing that now because we did have 1 or 2 people that needed to have 5 minutes for a medication break. So we're going to take a break at 8:30, okay? And then finally, I'm going to make this next point. I recently got some education and training at a UConn-sponsored town plan and zone sort of meeting type situation where you can learn how to run meetings and so forth. I'm going to hear from the next speaker, and then what I'd like to do is find if anybody here is in favor of us keeping the regulations as they are. You can speak right after this person. You get it first up. Okay? We'll see if anybody has anything to say, and if they don't, then we'll go back to all of you. Okay? You good? All right, please. Thank you.
My name is David Aversa of 7 Westwood Road, formerly of 25 Grove Hill Road, formerly of 29 Center Road, and we have family members on Woodbine and Prospect. So these say we are a Woodbridge family. I was raised here. I'm raising my family here. I'm also a business owner, 1 Bradley Road, so I am a business owner in town as well. And again, I'm not going to rehash what everyone said, but I am in favor of reverting back to the previous regulations. I'm pretty disheartened and shocked about what's happening, as I'm a psychiatrist and I try to help people with their problems, and a lot of times people just feel helpless, and this is one of the reasons why, because they're not heard. This is a town that clearly does not want this kind of regulation that was adopted. This is a town that really feels like there was no transparency. We have lost our faith in institutions and government, and these are the reasons why. And we have some of the people that really don't want to listen to what the town wants. We don't have the infrastructure. I'm a child psychiatrist. I used to consult with the school systems. Our school systems can't handle it, and they need to be improved. Our infrastructure, you've heard from the experts. So I'm just wondering the hubris that it takes to look in the face of the experts and of the people that you've hired as consultants who say, these regulations are a bad idea, and say, to hell with it, we're going to do it anyway. So I really hope that you all listen. Our selectmen over there, this group, revert back. This will devastate this town. Our taxes were just increased a lot. They were not phased in, and now all of our property values are going to plummet. And we're going to be left holding the bag for a really bad decision that was not made by the popular vote of the town. And this is what needs to be considered. You guys are not gods. We do not control things, but you need to listen to the people of this town. And what makes Woodbridge special, I'm born over 30 years. No one knows Woodbridge better than me. That's why I'm still here. I didn't move away. It's because of what this town is. And these regulations will fundamentally change what this town is, and it's not good. And we can develop in other ways. So thank you very much.
To help us all work together this evening, if there's someone in favor of not reverting the regulations, can they come speak in favor of it now? So if there's anyone that would not want us to change back or revert, can that person come and speak now? Is there one person? Okay. Sure.
It really does, yeah. Hello, my name is Dan Robinson, and I work as an assistant town planner for a nearby town. I am a member of Neighbors for Housing Southern Connecticut. We advocate for policies and projects that bring about affordability for housing in the region.
He doesn't live here. Not a resident. He doesn't
even live here. He doesn't even live here. Come on. Really? He doesn't live here.
I live in New Haven.
Okay, go back to New Haven. Go back to New Haven.
You have the floor.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't live here.
I know that, but but there are a lot of people, hear me out, because let me make a point because we're trying to work together. A lot of people wrote in for and against the Fountain Street project and other things, and certainly against Fountain Street, that don't live here. Okay, and so we do take in different communications from people and put it on the record because it's helpful. So he's going to let him have his 3 minutes. He's gutsy to stand in front of all of us. Let's hear what he has to say. And let's give the guy 3 minutes.
Waste of time.
3 minutes. All right?
No.
I'll be quick.
No.
Please.
Nobody wants to hear you.
No, we don't.
Hey, let's represent the best town that we can and just hold our tongue for 3 minutes.
I speak tonight in opposition to the amendment which seeks to decrease density and lot coverage in the Residence A district, specifically for multifamily developments, opportunity housing. The Residence A district covers 95% of all zoned land in Woodbridge, creating an environment that is almost completely single-family detached housing. This leaves little space for neighbors who simply can't afford the incredibly high home prices. They are left with minimal housing options. The purpose of the Opportunity Housing Codes, as stated in your regulations, is to enable multiple unit residential uses and structures within certain residential zoning districts in Woodbridge in order to promote housing choice and economic diversity in housing and provide for the development of housing opportunities. I would argue that making your opportunity housing regulations more restrictive than what they are currently at right now by lowering maximum stories, decreasing density, and decreasing lot coverage defeats the entire purpose of these regulations and the amendments made to strengthen them. In what scenario does tightening these regulations create opportunity for Woodbridge and those who wish to call it home, or for children who can't afford to move back home, or for seniors looking to downsize? This proposal will make it harder to build much-needed homes in 95% of all zoned land in town. This proposal will indeed encourage the status quo of untenable home prices, decreasing populations of children, and shrinking household sizes. Single-family development will not be enough to fight the affordability issues that Woodbridge and other towns in the region and the state face. This proposal will shrink opportunity for more neighbors to enjoy a beautiful community like Woodbridge well into the future. It will reduce housing choice and economic diversity, ideals that your codes spell out. I ask the Commission, even though I do not live here, to reject the proposal to uphold the integrity of the purpose of the Opportunity Housing Regulations that you wrote. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for listening respectfully. Is there someone else that wants to say anything with respect to not changing or reverting the language?
Hello, everyone. I'm signing in here. My name is Miles Lassiter, and I live in a neighboring town. I've lived in New Haven for many years. What affects one community affects the nearby community, and that's why I'm here to speak. This is a public hearing, and I have the floor. I'm speaking not for your applause, obviously, but for people who can't be here tonight, people who can't afford to live in this town. I'm opposed to a version of the regs. We've heard questions about public safety, the environment process, and going more slowly. Yet, if we look at the bottom line net impact of these changes, it's to make it harder to create more homes. Woodbridge has a responsibility, morally and legally, to create more homes, and it's lagging behind the needs of the public. Creating more restrictions will just make the problem worse, and we'll see fewer housing options. We know what happens then. Prices go up, and our kids and our grandkids struggle to find a place to live. We're already seeing too many young people leaving the region, leaving Connecticut, because they can't afford homes. As for public safety, is it safe for hundreds of people to be living on the streets? If we do not address the shortage of housing, that's what is happening in our community. You've drawn an artificial line that we can't see, and you're saying you don't care what happens over the border. It's interconnected. The housing market is interconnected. Let's talk about the environment. We already have environmental protections in place, and building housing closer together can actually help preserve the open space and reduce sprawl. This isn't just about growth for growth's sake, it's about making thoughtful choices and that balance housing needs with environmental responsibility. So I urge you to think about the future of the community. Let's not put up barriers that will push families away and drive up costs more. Thank you for your time.
Okay, anybody either in favor or against the provision that would like to speak? Anybody else?
Anybody against? Another non-resident.
Sonny Liu, 47 Housing Lane, Woodbridge. I think I need to reply to the comments from the neighbor in the New Haven because I'm from a different perspective. I'm a legal immigrant here. I moved to New Haven. I moved to Woodbridge. I choose to live to Woodbridge because of the good school system. I didn't prepare anything tonight. I just want to listen. But I think I should direct talk to the committee because I do bring out issues from the previous 804 applications. There's no, the letter of law authorization has an incorrect address. The whole application should not consider as application. Should be declined immediately. I reported to Mika last year, February. I reported to the TPC committee last October. Also, the heart-raising copy of my comments in the October's letter, I didn't find it online. It's only listed as, all the comments are listed as name, address, that's all. Then what's the point having the public comments if you don't care? It feels like my comments, no one cares about our comments, even it's overwhelming against the application, against the zoning changes. If we make the zoning changes, we need to be very clear. That means, okay, everyone in this Woodbridge community, we may have an issue or potential issue like tomorrow, your neighbor got bought, the property got bought, then it was proposed as a multifamily building next to you, and what happened? Like, there's a lot of people, I don't want to repeat a lot of reasons like people have to say about the safety, the traffic. I'm a parent of 2 kids. My kids went to teacher. How about you guys? I assume the committee, you should have kids or you should have grandkids when teacher went to Amity, right? So if we keep this zoning as is and change, we just will receive more and more application coming on the way. There will be a lot of students. We have to accept a lot of more students that are higher than our capacity. School system, I'm an immigrant. School system is the priority reason I moved to Woodbridge. Do you want to ruin it? We don't. And you are the committee who should serve the community. You are not the committee, like the other resident said. You are not the committee who should serve the developer. You need to listen to your residents. You need to listen to people who choose to live here. Also, what about accountability? In the justice system, if the judge makes a wrong decision, they will be held accountability. What about the community here? What about community decision here? If bad things happen in the future, for example, there will be bad accident when those projects are built, and then when there will fire, cause the casualty, who will hold responsibility for?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Robert Zasko, 6 Westford Road. Good evening. As many have said before, thanks for bringing this to the table. I was back here a couple of months ago, hoping that something like this might happen in January, and I promised to be here to help, so here I am. You've heard from a lot of folks already tonight, and so keeping in stride with expectations here, I'm going to try to sum up what I've heard, which is consistent with what I was prepared to say, which is this is a two-step process. The first step is I do advocate to reverse the 12-2-24 zoning changes. And I think that's step one. And I think these are decoupled in the sense that you need to just go ahead and do that. And I think the overwhelming majority of us. So that begs the second step, which is thoughtful consideration of how we can promote zoning in our town holistically. This is an entirety of the situation. This is not a specific section or tranche of the town, even though it happens to be a significant tranche of the town. So what I've heard tonight, 3 things for this second step. The Mason application, getting experts, and listening to residents. And those actually have quite a confluence between the 3, but let's just play it out quickly here. The Mason application, as you've heard from Mr. Mason himself, and you've heard from Ms. Wick earlier, there is 17 to 18 pages in a written document that are basically a blueprint for what is possible and also what has been vetted with our neighboring towns. So indeed, we have done our homework here, or at least Mr. Mason has, in terms of what other towns are doing that are proximal to us and what we can do. So this is not far-fetched, this is concrete, and this is real. So go to the Mason application. You had a presentation that was brought before most of the sitting board here today by Proxy Amy Morella. Long presentation, a lot of detailed information. Also slides, there's tons of information here. It begs the opportunity to get to number 2, experts. This room is full of subject matter experts in one regard or another, and there's many subject matter experts sitting here on the board. That does not necessarily mean that we have all of it. We can ask the Board of Selectmen for help if you need an additional expert. Please do it. The town has been asking for it. As a lawyer, I can write a document, but it means nothing if it doesn't reflect the technologist, the engineer, the scientist, or the business person that is supposed to be supported by the document. You guys are chartered with revising and considering further revisions to the zoning regulations. That does not mean you know what has to be done to make it reflect the needs of the town. Get your experts. So that brings us to the residents. We were here in 2024 talking about Scrivener's errors with the town plan and zoning regulations. Nothing really changed. We were here after the December 2nd, 2024 revisions that enabled the Fountain Street property. Nothing changed. We had an opportunity with the Mason application to revert back, and nothing changed. There's an expression, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, fool me 3 times. We are beyond the 3rd time. Please put us through the right paces, revert, and then let's thoughtfully consider the future. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to come up and have something to say?
Michael Broderick,
5 Oakville Road, and 1746 Litchfield Turnpike. So I'm here as a former zoning commission member. You know, I think what is most disappointing tonight, and the reason that so many people have come out to reverse the regulations that you gave us, is that they're just totally unpopular. And as one of the other people said, you are here not to represent developers. You're here to represent the town and the town people. That is what our commission did. And all of you have been appointed over the last 3 Democratic administrations, which it seems there's been a really radical shift in how zoning was done from when I was there. We really did not have controversial things, even though we wrote the plan of conservation and development that hadn't been done for 30 years. And people liked it because we made it consistent for the values of what Woodbridge was always about. You seem to have disregarded the public. For I don't know what reason. I will tell you that in the last election, from just a political point of view, I'm a Democrat, most people know that, and I spoke to my fellow town residents focusing on Democrats and independents, and Ika won by 8 votes. I flipped at least 150 people that I know. So if you aren't going to do it with people just asking you to do the right thing, there are political ramifications. Mika won by more than 500 votes the previous time. If I had worked one more day, I think I could have flipped the other 9 votes and we have political change here. So, you know, I think you need to really take into account what people want, and our town board members need to listen, not just propose things that they think are better for us, like you know better than the town residents. You certainly don't know better. I've lived here since 1976. So, you know, I think you really owe it to the town to make the change back and do much more thoughtful. I will say too, my practice is right next to the Toll Brothers. You guys had the opportunity to say to the Toll Brothers, with 70 units, why didn't you make 4 or 5 of those, ask them to make them affordable? Yeah. Yes. I mean, you pass up simple opportunities and stick us with projects that we don't want and changes we don't want. You know, that's the way in a small town you incorporate the housing into the fabric that's already there. For instance, the lot next to the M&T Bank was just sold, and that could be shops with some affordable units. It would fit in beautifully. I would bet you would have no opposition to opportunity or affordable housing in that kind of aesthetic. And that's the way all towns, especially the size of Woodbridge, do it. And that's why our previous speakers from Kathy Wick, they're giving you good examples of what you can do to make us fit in with the state regs and build more affordable housing. And I think most people would support that. Thank you.
Bob Hill, Acorn Hill Road. So, first of all, thank you for all the work that you do painstakingly and to deal with everything that comes your way here. So, one of the things that I think about in my life and at work is when my first instinct is to react, I ask questions and clarify and confirm to understand better. And I think what took place here is what was considered to be a well-intended move to help affordable housing was a water balloon effect. We squeezed in one area, that's now come out somewhere else. And I could see, I've been to a number of these meetings over the last several months, and I could see based on the questions that were asked and the struggles that you all went through, realizing you were somewhat boxed into dealing with an application. And as you went through it, some of you had the fortitude to realize what was taking place was creating a large safety issue for the town. And at the same time, some of you struggled with it. Where does that put us? And how can I deal with this and be able to move along with it? Well, we are where we are right now. And as we look at, yes, if we're looking for affordable housing, it shouldn't be the only criteria considered for approving. You've got to consider the other elements, the safety factors, and all the other things that go into this. So the proposal that's in front of you to revert back to the previous zoning is really moving back to a place we were and to start from that point. Because we knew what we were dealing with from that and then work towards forward. Taking what currently exists and trying to rework it is not the way to go. Go back to where you were and then go through, just like was suggested in a number of the presentations here today by Amy Morella, Kathy Wick, carefully move forward with evaluating what's the right thing to do rather than to rushing into something of that sort. Just really the key thing is make sure you do the right thing, make sure that our people are safe, and everything that I've heard here tonight really speaks to that. And I appreciate the time tonight and listening to everyone that's been out here tonight. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Any further comments? No, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Oh, that's okay.
You've been standing here for quite a while. Thank you for your patience.
I wasn't intending on speaking, but I just want to actually share. Bonnie Blake, Beecher Road. So I'll just say, because my anecdote that I'm going to share is specific to Fountain Street, but I want to say up front that I would not only like you to absolutely reverse the 2024 zoning changes that were designed by a developer, opportunistic developer, but I also want you to reconsider the 2021 opportunity housing to make a more comprehensive, thoughtful plan for our town that works for our town. It's not enough to do a CYA project where you're trying to protect yourself from lawsuits. Affordable housing has to be well thought out. I've been in that area as a consultant for 20 years for towns across the state of Connecticut in advising them on their affordable housing. You have to have the infrastructure, you have to have public transportation, you have to have town buy-in. You don't have it. Now I just want to share a little anecdote because everyone else has spoken so eloquently. Many years ago, I was coming home from work up from New Haven, up Fountain Street, and it was an icy night in February, and I got involved in a 35-car pileup right in front of where 804 Fountain Street is. The cars were upside, downside, all hit. We were all stuck together in one big mass from the Parkway all the ways up to almost where, past Woodfield. Fire engines, ambulances could not get to us because of the icy hill. They tried and they started sliding down into us. They tried coming up from New Haven. They couldn't do it. I want you to think about having a school bus or other vehicles on that road and cars trying to get out of that driveway. I wouldn't do it. I'm old and I would not live there. There's not a chance in hell that I want to try to pull out of a driveway on Fountain Street there. It's dark, it's windy, it's curved, and when you are stuck in an accident and you can't even get an ambulance down to you because of that road, it's not a safe place to have a housing development. It's not good for people who need affordable housing. Please rethink it.
My name is Mackenzie Granada. I live at 124 North Racebrook Road. Sorry. Has anybody ever heard the term, the pigs are running the farm? It's a colloquialism from the George Orwell book Animal Farm. It means broadly that the people making the decisions do not have the best interests in mind of the ones that they represent. An example of the pigs running the farm would be when a board or commission puts the wishes of a developer ahead of the best interests of the townspeople, notably in a clandestine way. Tries to convince folks that that's not what happened. We call that gaslighting now. Gen Z with their crazy rebranding of things. Anyway, as we all know, we've been talking about, the December 2024 decision to change the zoning regulations. We had a housing commission. And the Housing Commission was supposed to be, we were sold the idea that the Housing Commission was put together to think about these things carefully, to think about how affordable housing, opportunity housing, what have you, would be done in a thoughtful, responsible way for our town. There are people on this commission who were on the Housing Commission. And even those recommendations were far, far afield from what was adopted in December 2024. So you have a commission that's not only not listening to the people in the town, but it's not listening to other commissions. We also heard from folks in the, like some of the environmental, conservation, so on and so forth. They've all been up here speaking. I've been to some of these meetings before. It's just, the zoning change represents irresponsible growth for our town. 804 Fountain Street, it's not going to be the last one of these if we don't reverse this, right? So the vultures are here. They're not just circling, they're here, this change is just fodder for pillaging Woodbridge. It's just going to be, one developer after another. It's already starting. Last year we had property tax increases for the current residents, people who already live here, people who've been living here, that threatens to push hardworking residents out of their houses. So, but we're talking about creating new housing for people who already can't afford to live here. What's going to happen to them, and what's going to happen to the people who live here who now have to spend more on taxes to build up the infrastructure so that we can grow Woodbridge, right? So we need to grow Woodbridge in a responsible way, and we need to have zoning that is responsible, and this is not that. So I'm very much in favor of reversing the regulations passed in December 2024. And if it's not reversed by this commission, I encourage everyone here to join me in appealing to our first selectman, Mika, to please appoint new TPZ members who will actually listen to the people in the town.
Mika. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm here in agreement that the zoning regulations shall be reversed back to where we started from. You've heard from a lot of experts. We've heard from one or two local residents who are well aware of how hard it is to get into town, to get to a good school and work hard so we can live in this lovely environment. My name's Jessie Palumbo, sorry. We own a house in the flats, 33 Landon Street, multifamily. The rents that we're charging for the tenants, one of whom is a teacher at Amity High School, would be considered low income. When we bought that house, we bought it for $70,000 in '81 and rehabbed it. That whole area has changed. I've done research. It's gone from all Italian to the majority being Chinese. And every one of those students at Amity, I hear, are top students. So for those of us that are trying to get into a town for a better life, we have ways of making the housing affordable in the 5% of Woodbridge for the moment. That's not a Zone A. So we're in agreement with that zoning. We can make it work. We'll work with you in order to get to that percentage of affordable housing. We can do it together. That whole neighborhood is ready to announce what we charge for rents, give you some statistics, and you'll see there is affordable housing already in Woodbridge. And could be more, there's more space to build down there and other edges of Woodbridge. So I compliment you on your work, but please reconsider and we'll start and get this going right. Thank you.
Liz Chico's, Richard Sweet Drive. The residents of Woodbridge deserve to have well thought out zoning regulations, not something that it was crafted by a developer. I encourage you to revert them back to what they were previously. I just want to add that planting people from housing organizations from New Haven is a new one. It feels like theater and not transparency. Someone else can have my 2.5 minutes too, if they want.
Good job, good job.
Anyone else?
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to be 30 seconds.
Need half an hour to straighten out.
Penelope. My parents have lived on Ranch Road for 53 years. My dad was a painting contractor. And they worked hard. I'm outraged by all of this. And I'm going to get even more emotional when I read to you a quote I read today from the Democrat, late Tatiana Schlossberg, from her book, Inconspicuous Consumption. By the way, I live on Newton Road, 30 years, fast, raised 3 kids. I'm not going to go on. We've all heard everything. It's up to us to create a country that takes seriously its obligations to the planet, to each other, and to the people who will be born into a world that looks different than ours has for the last 10,000 years or so. That's it.
Please speak clearly and state your name and address. I have people who have spoken and I don't know who you
Since
are.
the person from New Haven or whomever, I don't want my name. I've said what I had to say. Did anybody not hear me?
I didn't catch you.
Penelope Tambus.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My name is Matt, I'll speak clearly. I just got to keep myself under control. My name is Matthew Giglietti, 14 Brightwood Drive, and I think you all know that I am not in favor of the zoning change that was made. I think it was ridiculous, made no sense, and put us where we are today, and that is in jeopardy
of ruining the town of Woodbridge as we know it. Small town governments are unique in that we have the upper echelon, which is the Board of Selectmen, and underneath that we have boards and commissions, either elected or appointed. Unfortunately, a board as important as the Town Planning and Zoning is appointed. And all the people on this board, with maybe one exception, Dr. Wisney, were appointed by the Democratic Town Committee. And they're here, and who are they beholden to, I don't know. But let me say this. With all that has been presented in the past year about Fountain Street, the speeches, I marvel at the brilliance of the Woodbridge people. The things they say, the things they come up with. We have a very intelligent community. But all the things that were put forward about taxes and everything, I mean, and yet 2 weeks ago, they voted 4-2 in favor of Fountain Street. With all that, they voted. So, what I want to say is this. Again, small government, I'll end it with this. Tomorrow night, the Board of Selectmen, which now has the Democrats with a 4-2 rubber stamp majority, are going to elect all the new people to all the new commissions and all the new boards. And you're going to see a different board here. I can tell you, I can guarantee you someone's going to get bounced off of this commission who probably opposed this whole thing. Someone's not going to be back, and it's going to be a whole new board. And I will say this, and I hope I'm wrong. I really, truly hope I love Woodbridge. I am willing to guarantee you that zoning regulation will not be changed. It might be altered, it might be tweaked. They will never go back to the original regulation as it was, because that would be an absolute admission that they were wrong in the first place. And this group is never going to do that.
100%.
Hi, I'm John Hogan. I live at 549 Amity Road. I'm going to be really quick. I didn't really prepare much. I moved here 3 years ago from Los Angeles. Different zoning in Los Angeles. I actually lived in outside of Pasadena in Altadena, California. So that's the town that burned to the ground last year. So I am a pretty liberal guy. I think I'm probably pretty much on the left of a lot of people, maybe in Woodbridge. I don't know, but maybe not. But I'm not mad at the town. I actually kind of appreciated the transparency of some of the country club plans, believe it or not. And I didn't know anything about the zoning change really before the last couple weeks. I support reverting to before the 2024. But I think it's really telling that the 8306 application I referenced earlier, which is the thing that really freaks me out, I guess, which is on Beecher, is something that the state allows to go through when there's not adequate affordable housing. Is that correct? And I think that points to that we are in a crisis, whether or not we revert this, and that we really need to address this affordable housing issue. I was a renter for basically my entire adult life until I moved to Woodbridge. I couldn't move within California without my rent, with my kids going up to like $3,000 a month. So having apartments doesn't mean that you have affordable housing. My neighbors' houses that I lived in a duplex, my neighbor's house was $1.5 million by the time I moved out. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that we can't necessarily stop these external applications that the state grants. So this won't make those things go away. But on the other hand, like, I think that also the government of this town needs to listen to the people of the town, the constituents, and they need to make a gesture towards that. But I also think it's important, as someone who grows to really appreciate this community more as time goes on, that the people of this town also understand that things are going to change whether we like it or not. That hit me a year ago when I saw the town I used to live in burned to the ground. So listen to the fire department. Emergencies happen. This is the time of extremes. Whatever we allow for in the zoning is going to be the limit that is going to happen as soon as possible. So please, let's not only be listening to developers in that process. Let's listen to everybody, but also please, everybody, appreciate that change will happen whether we want it to or not. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Adrienne Michi Smith. I live at 17 Ansonia Road. And I'm a little off the mark here, I think. I basically want to address the two gentlemen who are here from out of town. Are you both still here?
Can you speak up?
Yeah, my name's Adrienne Michi Smith. I live at 17 Ansonia Road, and I'd like to address the two gentlemen from out of town. Are you both here? Anyway, I don't know. Are you from Connecticut?
Yes.
I grew up in Jersey.
For many years.
I'm sorry?
So that's
Okay. I grew up in Derby, and my husband grew up in the flats, and we came from uneducated families. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but I have a little bit of a problem with the people of Woodbridge being characterized as those who, maybe snobs is not the right, but we want to keep others out. That's not the way it is at all. We worked very, very hard to get where we are.
Yeah.
And we wanted to educate our kids. We wanted to do the best we could for our 3 kids.
Yeah.
And that's why we moved here. So, kind of cut us some slack, okay?
Yeah.
Any final comments?
Good evening. I'm breaking protocol by standing before you tonight. I am Andrea Urbano of Sperry Road. Woodbridge is my hometown, and I am an elected official, currently serving my 2nd term on the Board of Selectmen. I am here to speak in favor of revisiting these amendments and to ask this commission some questions. First, I guess, let me back up and thank you for your service. You are appointed, and this is a huge amount of work, and I appreciate your service. Mostly, I want to thank you in the audience for your participation, for your care and investment in your community. As an elected official, I can tell you what motivates me to serve, and it's each and every one of you, regardless of what political affiliation you are, of what part of Woodbridge you live in, how long you've been here. You are what motivate me, and as an elected official, I make every choice and put every step forward to be for the people, by the people, because you chose me. You're not elected yet. I hope one you will be. But you follow the same applies. You are a government. You are for the people. You are by the people. Please be so. I ask you why you're here. What motivates you? To elect, to be considered for appointment, for nominations. What motivated that? Another thing that motivated me are some of the issues we had in our town at the time I stepped up to the plate. And like this notion of collaborative and creative problem solving. We have a lot of things that require that. And I had such faith and optimism and hope that my fellow elected officials, that are appointed boards and commissions, and that this community can come together to achieve those creative solutions. And I've seen so much come from the town. I've seen so much come from every single one of you over the past couple years to work towards that. I've seen a lot from our volunteers, but this isn't it. This isn't it. And so I ask you, as you make action, perhaps tonight or not, to really consider what your role is on TPC and how you can best serve this town. I think it's crystal clear. And like Rob Rosasco and many others have said tonight, this support for revisiting the amendment, reverting, is not to keep that previous status quo. That is just the first step. Let's take it a step further and work towards that creative problem solving with the help the foundation has already laid to come up with a solution that works for the people. Thank you.
I'm going to ask our town attorney a question now, if I may. So, Dick, I'm going to ask another time to see if people want to come up and have anything else to say, but I think we're getting to the end of public commentary, and I think the commissioners, have heard from different varieties, from different positions that people have. So, I'm thinking about moving to closing the public hearing. Do you have any comments on that?
No, if you feel, I mean, you can canvass the room if there's no other speakers. I mean, the commission can technically vote to close the public hearing, and that concludes the record, so to speak, for purposes of the commission making a decision on the proposed reversion. Mike D'Amato, the town planner, and I, as staff, are still here and can answer more
During our
technical
work session,
questions.
like, we can go over some stuff with you during the work session.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to just put out one more call. Does anyone else want to speak before I close the public hearing? We are listening. Okay.
Margaret Anderson.
Hold on. We have one or two takers, Ms. Anderson, and then if you could, after them, speak. You can sit down if you'd like.
I'm up.
Oh, very good. All right, understood. All right. Thank you. Please state your name and let's hear it.
My name is Debbie Pine. I am a lifelong resident of town. Okay. My name is Debbie Pines. I'm a lifelong resident. I have seen a lot of creativity and leadership from the get-go, and it was politically equal throughout things. But what I want to say is that I think there's a lack of creativity because there are things out there that can change affordable housing. Madison is using Habitat for Humanity, and that is a fabulous way of working with people, and I think that should be a consideration. And the other thing is I love history, and I've heard from people that there was 1948 when they were building the parkway, there was a question during the blasting that there was flooding. I think that we should look into that more because of a historical perspective, and I think that is worthwhile doing. Thank you.
My name is David Lober. Excuse me, I live at 35 Wethawa Road. I've been in Woodbridge here about 45 years. And I'll keep my remarks very brief. I just wanted to make one point. The point is, if this board is really interested in creating affordable housing, which I think is a worthwhile endeavor and is something that the state mandates, then why don't we go back beyond what we did with our change in regulation in December of 2024 and mandate that every new development have at least 30% affordable housing, therefore bypassing the 830G rule and give us some substantial impact on creating more affordable housing. Thank you.
Margaret Anderson, 87 Central Road. A question. First, thank you all. You brought up so many issues and thoughts and ideas. My mind is spinning. And as I spin, I have a question. And it's a really very fundamental question. I am now in a zoning that will allow for apartment buildings. My neighbor is here. He might put an apartment on his building, or maybe I will put an apartment on mine. I don't know yet. But the question is, do my property taxes go up or down with the ability to have an apartment on my building or my neighbor's building? And how does that all fit in with our tax evaluation of this last year that went up? When I bought our property, when we bought our property 50 years ago, we had clear intent on what our deed gave us. Yes, things are changing really fast, but I'm trying to put this all into perspective for what it means specifically for me and this community that I love, I've been part of. I don't know that anybody asked that question, but I'm wondering. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like to ask the commission members if someone would like to propose.
So moved.
He's great. So I'm closing the public hearing.
Yes, so is I.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. All those in discussion? Any discussion? Thank you, Paul. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, please so state.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the public hearing is closed. I want to thank the staff for helping us and assisting us with all the vast material that's come in for the particular public hearing. Thank you also to the commission for listening carefully to everyone that's arrived and come in and showed up tonight. I appreciate that. We appreciate your participation in the evening that we've had, listening to what everyone has been saying. So this is now a closed public hearing. We're going to move to this in a minute and discuss it in our work session and move to a vote. So that will happen in a few minutes if you want to stay for that. Okay? Okay? All right. Yeah. All right. We're going to take a 5-minute break right now, and then we're going to come back and we'll go into the work session. All right?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Please continue.
Good? All right, thank you. So following along in our agenda, we just closed the public hearing for the amendment to the zoning regulation. Moving on to new business. In new business, we have no items that have come up, so there's no new meeting, no new business to discuss. So we're going to move into our work session here as a commission now. So in the work session, we have a consideration and appropriate action regarding the first point, which is what we just closed the public hearing for, which is the amendment to the zoning regulations proposed by the commission to revert to the language in section 3.2 in place prior to the amendments adopted on December 2nd, 2024. So we're going to discuss that in our work session. Public comment is closed, but we're going to discuss this now, and you'll hear us talk about it as commissioners. I'm going to put forth a motion. I'm going to put forth a motion to approve the amendment to the zoning regulation proposed by the commission to revert to the language of section 3.2, the opportunity housing, in place prior to the amendments adopted on December 2nd, 2024.
Second.
There you go.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Paul.
Who do you think?
Well, you know, you're down at the other end.
It was my motion, actually.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, he controls me with his brain. It just comes over like that. So we have a motion that we're now going to discuss. I'm going to open a discussion for members of the commission to discuss it in terms of reverting to the previous opportunity housing section 3.2 language, striking the language that we revised on December 2nd, 2024. Commission members, thoughts?
So I have a question. So the original amendment that was enacted a year plus ago.
Yes.
If I understand it correctly, the purpose of that was, it's clearly flawed. And I think people know that I'm opposed to the 804. But the purpose of that was in order for Woodbridge to move forward on its state obligation to provide affordable housing. Do I have that right?
Jim, let me say something, and Paul, then let me give you the floor. What was happening is under the original opportunity housing language, there was almost no building being done in town. So there was no affordable housing moving forward, okay? And we didn't really see anything start to germinate, all right? So we were approached by a developer, and what they said is, look, if you make these revisions to the housing language, what we would be able to do is take advantage of that and do some building. And so the thinking behind it was, okay, can we get some affordable units? Can we get some more diverse housing units in Woodbridge? What applications can we see? How would this make that possible?
Right. So the impetus for making the change was, in part, this was a way to jumpstart development in Woodbridge in order to make some small progress on our state-mandated obligation to have affordable housing. Is that
in part? Yeah.
Part.
Each commission member has, can say something else.
So I have I was the only one who voted no on it, for the record. I thought it was flawed, misguided, and ridiculous, to put it bluntly. But the problem was that it didn't. You're going to put 100 new units, and only 10% are going to be affordable.
Right.
So by adding 100 units and 10%, you didn't help the housing stock at all.
I totally agree with you.
I mean, the whole thing was. Look, I know the people who came think that it was done underhanded, and listen. I voted against it. I voted to amend it. I made the motion 2 months ago to change it, but it was done properly by the regs. Like, nothing was done. We didn't have private meetings. Nobody, that I know, nobody met privately to get this through. People voted the way they want. I disagreed, and now here we are to hopefully to try to fix it. But it didn't do what, it's like Jeff had an interpretation. It didn't accomplish that.
Right.
Like, you want to put housing stock in, and then it should have been 30% affordable.
Right. Because if our obligation under state law is 10%, and all you're doing is you're adding 100 and you're putting in 10%, you've gotten nothing.
Right.
Well, guys, let me hold you right there. I want chair. Let me let the chair interrupt. Ask our staff person about that just briefly, because towns do get some points that might in some ways count differently in 830Gs. Michael D'Amato, can I put you on the,
Sure.
Can I just ask you about that? So, the question that came up just real quick, maybe you could clarify for us. We're trying to build affordable housing units, but the number of affordable housing units were too low in what we just went through, right? But isn't there some benefit to building units generally, or something like that, or?
So there's a couple of things that I would say. Number one, there's sort of the capital A affordable and the lowercase a affordable, right? So just because if something is deed restricted, then it counts towards the town's 10% goal. But something that is some other version of, has some other restriction associated with it, is still more affordable than a market rate. It's still attainable in some way. The capital A affordable, deed restricted, are the only ones that count towards that number. So I think what the commissioners are saying, or at least what I'm
So the
hearing
town
was-
doesn't get credit then?
Well, like,
Right?
if you need to get to 10% and you're building at that 10% each time, you're adding 10 units, but you're also adding 90 market rate units,
Which is
so
what
your
people-
overall number doesn't change. So you get the benefit of having more units available, but you're not moving towards the threshold of being exempt from 8-30G.
Well, hold on.
And that's
hold
my
on,
question.
Hold on, Mike, is that, it doesn't seem like that's, I mean, so, for the record, I'm gonna vote to revert, but mathematically, if we're sitting at 1.2%, right, and we bring in something that's 10%, it does move the needle, it doesn't move it enough, and that's the point that's been well and articulately made. But it does move the needle, right, in terms of just its numerator, denominator.
Right, it is. If they qualify as deed restricted affordable per the statute.
Right, anything more than 1.2% would improve the numerator of affordable units, right, in terms of.
Excuse me, the hearing's closed.
Yeah, so this was the point that, the member of our staff that, I sort of was listening to in December of 2024 made. I mean, and Mike, I'm very curious about your take on this. I think I asked him, why do we need to do this? And he said something that very closely mirrored the applicant's representative's statement, which was, well, you haven't had anything come in. And it's the reason is that the current regulations are too restricted. And I think, the 20% was one of the numbers. They kind of went through the whole thing on hardscaping and density and things like that. So the takeaway from our staff member at that time was, well, what you guys have in place right now, you're never going to move the needle towards affordability because what you have right now is too restrictive. So loosen it up a little bit, and maybe you'll begin to get, the more you add 12% to 1.2%, the closer you get to 10%. So that was, that was my recollection of what happened at the time from our staff member. So can we just get your take, Mike? I mean, is there a way to increase affordable housing stock that's, more consistent with some of the alternate approaches that have been described here tonight and less consistent with what we did 13 months ago?
So I think what I struggle with this amendment in looking at everything, there's a couple of components. There's amendments to there's 3 changes to the table, and then the note on affordability. The amendments to the table have nothing to do with housing. They have to do with housing because it's in the housing opportunity zone, but it's a site design issue. Talking about coverage, talking about height. These are all things that apply to development, period. And so, it's hard for me because in my mind, I very much looked at this from a site design standpoint, and I put together a graphic for myself to try to get my arms around what are we looking at here, and try to get some of the metrics of why is this so tricky? Because this applies to every single development, commercial, industrial, everywhere, right? And so, just humor me with some of the numbers. The way that the regs as proposed, and if you walk them back, would kind of lay out, is that the setbacks alone accommodate for 43% of the lot area, assuming you have a 65,000 square foot lot, right? Then to get to your required parking standards, that's another 37% of the allowable lot area. So then we can, so as you start chipping away at what's left, what you end up with is a regulation that facilitates a development that doesn't work, right? Because, I ran the numbers to scale, looking at everything, and assuming we have no common areas, assuming we don't convince them to put in 2 elevators, we're not worried about all these other things, storage of ladders. You're talking about on a just a standard 65,000 square foot lot, a total of 22 units at 2.5 stories, and you're going to end up with an approximate unit size of 630 square feet. Not viable, right? At $320 to $360 a square foot of construction cost, you are not creating a regulation that is in reality. You may all have your own opinions about what that is, right? You may think, fine, if they don't want to live in reality, they're going to have to deal with our reality. This is Woodbridge. The alternative is 8-30G. And so if I'm telling you what I think you should do, you should create regulations that are as tolerable and as constrained as they can be in a manner that makes sense to you, but also that you have to be somewhat uncomfortable with, because the alternative is you are going to just keep getting 8-30Gs.
And there wouldn't be any advancement on our terms to advance affordable housing or any other type of housing because
Right.
no one would build under it.
Right. And the only other point that I wanted to make, I was talking about it earlier during the break, is that you know, we're in a little bit of a different situation, I think, what a lot of people think about in terms of land use. We are not deciding, or you are not deciding what you think is necessarily just the best for the town, right? That's not your charge. The situation that we're in here is that the state has delegated zoning authority with certain constraints and mandates to towns. So you have the ability to develop regulations in a zoning map in the manner the state said you have to do it. So we don't have all that latitude to just say, well, everybody in town thinks we should do this or shouldn't do this. Unfortunately, the state has said that's not exactly the barometer that we're using.
So I struggled with that a lot as a commissioner too, because when I read our regs, and I just pick it up, I'm not an attorney, okay?
Yep.
You pick up the regs and it reads a certain way, you're like, okay, I'll do this, or, you know, let's have these different types of applications come in, and if I don't like it, I'll take a slice out of our special exception language, okay?
Yep.
And get rid of it. But as court cases and as state law has evolved, it's more difficult to do this.
Yeah, and really that's meant to say, you know, sort of supportive, at least in my mind, why we continue to see things at the state level that feel like they're walking back all this authority that they gave towns. And it's because we're sort of still in this position statewide where the process is not working as intended. The 8-30G, the whole appeals process was created 50 years ago because the state recognized that towns were becoming exclusionary. They created it because of that scenario statewide, right? And so I think that getting really long story long, back to your question about what you should do, you know, I think you should think about what is appropriate and what is something that you can tolerate. But as I was just talking about with Chris, you have to consider the alternative, right? I was just explaining that we support another town not far from here. They have denied many housing-based applications for one reason or another. And what they are finding is that when all is said and done and the dust settles and they lose in court, the project that gets built is far worse and far less desirable, far taller, far more dense, uglier, whatever you want to call it, than what they had the opportunity to work with the developer on when it came forward.
Understood.
And that's not meant to scare you, but
No,
this is reality.
It's the tension that's
But it is worth clarifying that point, Mike. And because when you say it is not our job to do what's in the best interest of the town, I disagree with that. It is our job to do what's in the best interest of the town. But we need to recognize what are the rules under which we live.
Yes.
In order to do what's in the best interest of the town. And so if we don't come up with a system that allows for the development of affordable housing, then a developer gets to come in and take the red flag out of his pocket, throw it on the ground and say 8-30G, and when that happens, we have no control.
Correct.
No control. And so either we do things that may not be the best, the things that we love, but will enable us to get to 10% of the housing. And once we get to 10%, or even an interim 4%? There's a shorter interim, right?
Nick can speak to
Yeah,
that.
okay, but there's a shorter interim
Yes.
that you can get a moratorium for a certain period of time if we're showing progress toward affordable housing. So if we want to have some modicum of control over housing that gets developed in Woodbridge, and not have some developer come in and throw his red flag and say 8-30G, then we have to come up with a system that it's affordable, of some number of affordable housing units. And that number of affordable housing units that buys us a 4-year moratorium is?
1.5% of the total dwelling units in town.
1.5% of the total dwelling units in town.
Correct.
And our current number is point something.
Point something.
So in order for us to avoid the developer's red flag on the ground, we need a system that says we are developing affordable housing somewhere, somehow, capital A affordable housing, not, well, yeah, it's really affordable, people could live here. It has to meet state-required mandate, right?
Correct, and can I just add to that quickly? The initial point of having the local, Jim, I agree with everything that you just said. 830G is that red flag, and until you've either received a moratorium approved by the State Department of Housing after demonstrating that you've increased capital A affordable units in town by 1.5% of the total dwelling units, whatever that number is in town, then you get a 4-year moratorium, which means 830G no longer applies for 4 years. They can't use that as their trump card. So this regulation in place on your books, the purpose, as you stated, Jim, is to try to get to that 1.5% or ultimately the 10% number, which takes 830G permanently off the table. This type of a regulation that builds in like a 20% of the units, 30% of the units, trying to incentivize a developer to bring in and build a bigger structure, that nets you a bunch of affordable units at once, right, with one development. So that's a way in your system that we're thinking about here to bring in a lot of affordable units at once, maybe. I mean, that's a way to get us closer quickly to that 1.5%. Another way, we've heard lots of different options. You know, this is a part of a broader system that maybe goes beyond what the Opportunity Housing Reg right now says. Maybe focusing more on ADUs. Maybe putting a requirement that a certain portion after a certain number
And
of
ADU means what?
accessory dwelling unit.
Okay,
You know, like they call it granny pods. It's a in-law apartment on your same property, basically. Another dwelling unit on a single-family property. So there's ways to still increase that number of affordable dwelling units to get to that percentage that takes 830G off the table. That's really everything that I think we're talking about here.
But what we did fail, I mean, what we passed, however many, 13, 14 months ago, we failed.
It added whatever it would add, whatever affordable units are coming out of Fountain Street, those will count towards that 1.5.
But I mean, come on.
Look, I'm not arguing
I know,
for it.
but what we did was ridiculous.
Hey,
We failed, and now we have the consequences. Now we have an opportunity to change. But I think we're putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
The discussion should be first reverting back to the zoning regs. And then we can have a discussion on the plan, how to put regs in that makes sense.
And Paul, to your point, let's have a little bit more discussion with commission members and take a vote on the reversion, okay?
That's what I'm-
And then
can I
point
finish?
B,
Yeah.
we're gonna put that,
That's fine.
put that on a future
Yep.
planning session.
We
We'll have a
can
planning
get
session.
Mike and
Where
Nick.
we can do that. So right now, if any commission members, and I know you want to say something else, Jim, I can feel it, it's coming over here. Anyone else that wants to speak as to the motion on the table, which is to revert to the previous housing language? Go ahead, Jim.
So I perhaps we're putting the cart before the horse, but here's what I'm worried about. We are in the, I don't know who was it who talked about the Beecher Street project, Beecher Road project. A number of people did. And I think that identifies our risk. And every day that goes by that we don't have a useful, affordable housing development plan, we are running the risk of, we've already got developer number one who's thrown his 8-30G red flag. But what's to stop the next guy from coming along and throwing his red flag or her red flag? And so I think that we are under some time pressure. And I think that if we, look, this new zoning reg it's terrible. It's terrible. The fact that we have 804 Fountain Street is terrible. I spoke against it. I think it sucks. And that's a technical legal term. It sucks. But I also recognize that we have to move really fast in order to come up with a real affordable housing plan so that we're not suffering red flag after red flag after red flag after red flag. And so my question is, we have in this room tonight a lot of energy that says we have to fix it and we have to fix it fast. And I hate to lose this energy to get it done. So is there some way that we can say, look, for the next 90 days, 120 days, 150 days, there's a moratorium, no more of these developments under the big plan, under the current regulations. But what we have to do in the next 90, 120, and 150 days, whatever it is we have to come up with a real affordable housing plan so that we're not just getting rid of the problem and leaving something out there in the ether where nothing is going to get done and we're going to find ourselves just talking at each other for another 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. But let's put a moratorium on it and put the pressure on ourselves to get the job done.
So Jim, let me take that from you.
Okay.
All right, you move your rook, let me move a piece. All right.
Okay.
So I'm fully in favor of very rapidly, in a quarter or two, getting our opportunity housing language, improved and maybe we're something where we can get something done. All right. But that's where we are the Town Planning Zoning Commission. We don't just do zoning, we do planning. So, during those instances, we want to hear from the Board of Selectmen, we want to hear from the Economic Development Commission, we want to hear from Conservation, we want to hear from the Housing Commission. So we want to hear from these people, and you can do requests for proposals, you can go to nonprofit companies that will help you put in some of this housing, and you can, as a group, like all of us working together, can do that through different towns and commissions. Okay, so, and let me hear what you.
I'm in favor of having this conversation in public, and this is part of the conversation that we had when we, 13 months ago, and I think that we all who voted in favor were hoping that would have this effect, and we can disagree on whether we failed or we didn't, and I know the public's stance on that. But one of the things that as we're going to get the input and going forward on new regulation, the goal is to have affordable housing development, and there are, beyond a plan, there are not a huge number of ways that we can force development. We have developers who, there are private developers who, like the one at 804 and like the Beecher developer, who can come in and say what it would take on our regulations to get them to build, whether it's a 10% or a 20% or a 30% housing. So it seems like we will need the input of the private developers, which is what we had before. And maybe we should have gotten more input from other developers and let them say who was willing to do the most amount that would of affordable housing on 804 before we. But certainly we will need to hear from. There are nonprofit developers, there are private developers. We can get. Unless there are, and hopefully there are, people in the town who would like to be developers, and that would be, I think that would be the best of all worlds if it was, local, because then you have the stakeholder living in the town. But certainly we will, at the end of the day, it would seem appropriate to me that we get that input, and that will be, if there is a developer who says that this plan that we're coming with is not going to produce, like I can't get a mortgage to build or a construction loan to build if you require 40% or 30% affordable housing, then we have to decide, as I did previously, that some development is better than putting together something that will not. Or we have to reach out to the state and see if they have, the state obviously has lots of dollars that they put towards housing, mostly through nonprofit developers. But again, we don't have, aside from the golf course, other towns that have done a lot of development often will do an RFP and for $1 or for a nominal fee, they will give their public land to a developer, public or private, and then they, with that, they can, if they're using state money, oftentimes it's 80% affordable. And there are lots of debates that happen when you get up to that level about appropriateness and integrating into the community, and I've seen those as well. So you get, but obviously if 80 units out of 100, you get a lot closer to your, so it's just to manage expectations about what this conversation will say, because in the end, if we revert to the regulations and go through this process, and there's a lot of public comment, and we still, at the end of the day, poll the Department of Housing or poll other state agencies, or we poll any developer who will return our phone calls, and if there is a consensus that this will not produce any housing, then, you know, then we're back to square one, where the end goal, the end of the process is no new development. And I have seen in other towns where there are people within the town whose that is their in fact goal. And
that happens, but then you get the 830G
of course,
hearing
and so
coming in.
hopefully people know that, but that's
Right. They
that's
will, because
something-
we're gonna be talking
yes,
more about it.
But so that's
But,
my,
sure.
you know, I want to bring private developers in, because those are the people who will end up building this. There is no provision for public housing. It's not, I don't think people are asking for that. So we will need to work with private developers, for-profit or nonprofit.
And in addition to talking to developers, I listened carefully to Amy Morella and Kathy Wick were saying, and we are one of 168 towns in Connecticut, and there are, I think it's right,
169.
169.
Close.
Close enough. All right, but other towns of the 169 have developed regulations. New Haven, Hamden, Orange, Woodbury, and we can look to them for model zoning regulations, for model efforts. Yes, we need to talk to developers, but we should take a look and see what our neighbors and friends around the state are doing in order to achieve their affordable housing program. And I just, again, at the risk of repeating myself, we have a moment of urgency here. We have one 8-30G red flag. I don't want to see another one. And so if we don't come up with a plan, and if we don't create the internal pressure on the Board of Selectmen, on the Conservation Commission, to work together over the next 4 or 5 months, then our job as planning and zoning is we're going to be looking at a lot of 804Gs or the 27 Beechers, where we have zero control. At least we were able to have a conversation about 804. But if 8-30G goes ahead, we're up that creek, proverbial creek, which I won't use that technical legal term for. But so.
And you can negotiate outside of 830G, as Ben Cherry did with the ladder and extra elevator and certain things, and you can sometimes have that give and take.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please.
We have two things to do. One of them is easy, one of them is hard. We only really have to consider the easy thing tonight, which is to just press pause.
Yeah, right. So let me just call any commissioners. Anybody else have anything else they want to say on the motion before we vote? Ian, you want to say something?
I agree that we need to have a vote on the matter that's on the table, particularly because any future zoning changes have to go through a whole bunch of hoops.
They do.
Can't
As
happen
you
tonight.
described. Yes, that's correct. Kathy, any comments? Aaron? Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
love to comment.
My mistake. Sorry. All right.
Jeff, I just want to say this in
I'm gonna
closing
vote.
and in summary.
Yeah. Please.
99.5% of all the public comment on 804 was against.
Yes.
45 people spoke tonight, as well as submitted emails, notwithstanding our two neighbors from surrounding communities. 45% were in favor of reverting back to the zoning.
100%.
I'm sorry, 45 to 0. Excuse me. Thank you, my friend. To me, it's crystal clear. We don't have to talk about what changes, as Jim mentioned. That's another special meeting. Let's vote on this and
So-
move ahead.
So all those in favor?
Can I just ask our lawyers one question?
Sure.
Is a moratorium, is that a thing, or is that just pie in the sky?
It is a thing to, what I think you're using the correct legal term. Moratorium, we use it in the 830G context. It can also be used separately. It's basically amounts to a resolution that this commission could pass that says, okay, we're not allowing Chris to accept any more applications over her desk that are seeking a permit under this section of our regulations. That is a legal process. I am not positive as we sit here tonight if there's been a more recent change in the law prohibiting that with respect to housing-related regulations. The planner and I were just talking, and we're not entirely comfortable
Fair
with
enough.
that. It is a mechanism, but for this purpose came to be an answer tonight.
Is it a legally tenable position?
I'm sorry?
Is it legally tenable? Do such proclamations of temporary moratorium hold up?
Yes, yes. What I'm saying is I don't know if it would for this purpose where you're saying you can't have any more applications under this housing-specific regulation. There has been some legislative advancement recently that's dialed back what sort of restrictions can be put in place related to housing, these localized moratoriums being one of them. So I don't know. The answer is I don't know if it's...
And would such a moratorium itself require a public hearing?
It would.
Yep, we have to, okay,
So
so
it would
I'm
take more time.
I'm voting in favor, so I'm voting in favor.
The motion is reverting back to the...
Yes, the motion's already out, I'm calling for votes,
Yeah, just restate the question so we know what.
All right, so there is a motion before us, first and seconded, to an amendment to the zoning regulations proposed by the commission to revert to the language of section 3.2 opportunity housing in place prior to the amendment adopted on December 2nd, 2024. So I motioned that, Paul did a second on that, so this is a reversion, Paul, to pre-December 2nd, 2024. So that means it's from 4 stories to 2.5, and then the number of units go up that are affordable, and then the density decreases.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'm voting in favor of that.
All those in favor?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And any abstentions?
Is that effective immediately?
That's a staff question. Andrea, that's a...
Wait. People, please be quiet.
Can I answer your question, please?
You need to set
When is the, all right, effective date, tomorrow. What is it, 7 days? Thank you. I know. Be there, don't.
We're not gonna have anything come in the next 2 weeks.
What's the notice we have to send out?
We have to get a notice written, and it has to get filed with the town clerk.
Okay.
And whether people believe it or not, we do everything according to the regulations.
Yes, I know you do. I know you do.
Well, I'm getting a little tired of hearing otherwise.
So 10 business days?
Maybe 2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Thank you very much. Good, thank you.
Can we put it?
We're still inside. We know that. The 19th. We got it.
Because I need to do stuff. Nobody's gonna sit
Folks, we're still in session. Town planning and zoning is in session. You're welcome to leave, but we have a lot of business and we would like to go home relatively soon. So thank you for coming, thank you for being here, thank you for participating. You are welcome to leave. We're still in our work session. And Paul talks a lot, and I'd like to leave within, a half an hour, 15 minutes. All right? Thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you. All right.
The date, right?
All right, the actual dates, go ahead.
Can we say next Friday? That's
No.
2 working weeks? Why not?
Because I have to.
Chris, what's the noticing requirement?
I have to do the notice and I have to get a set of regs in here. I haven't written minutes for a month and a half because I don't have time. Nobody is gonna submit anything in the next 2 weeks. There's nothing out there.
Chris asked for 2 weeks, and that's what we're gonna give him, all right? 2 weeks. All right, we are still on the amendment to the zoning regulations. So the second part of this is setting up a agenda item. Chris, would you please put in an agenda item for our next meeting for the commission to discuss the opportunity housing regulations? And we're going to talk with our town planner about it and our town attorney in terms of sort of distilling all the data that came in, everybody's opinions, and what this should look
And
like.
you want that in reference to 80002.
And yes, if they could do it in a month, I'll
You
talk.
may not get it in a month.
Yeah, so, but put it in for the first meeting in
It'll
February.
be there as a placeholder.
Yeah, that's good. All right, agreed, okay. All right, Paul, did you hear that?
Yeah, I was about to say, and if the town planner, Mike, if you have any, stuff in advance that you want to start circulating, what other towns are doing that may be applicable, it would be helpful.
So can I make a statement and a question?
Sure.
We were just talking, we have 8002, which becomes effective July 1.
Yes.
I haven't been here very long, but you guys seem to take a long time to get things done, from what I can tell, because you had Fountain Street, which was open for what, 10 months?
They pulled the application.
I know, I'm playing.
All right, go ahead.
So my point is, to be nimble, rather than setting this on the agenda for February to then talk about it, can we have some authority to present to you something as a starting point, and you can love it or hate it?
Yeah.
The one thing that is, in my mind, is there's kind of 2 ways to do this, and there's the approach which is to be highly efficient, to get as close to the goal as possible with as few parcels as we can, or sort of with some of the changes that you talked about here, right, the changes that we walked back tonight, to get to the same number, you're going to require a lot more development, right? It's sort of pro-sprawl, is to use the term that we heard, because we've now cut density, we've cut coverage, we've cut height, we've cut all these things. So we've got to develop a lot more properties to get to the 10%. So I guess my question is, what is the knee-jerk reaction of the commission? Do we want to be efficient, and do we want to get as many units out of parcels as we can within reason in certain areas to get to that 10% quickly? Or do you want to take a little bit of a more sort of slow approach?
We'd like to see the whole menu. I would much rather be spending money on you than be spending money in court. You know what I mean? So can we please see all of the options?
Bring some up,
Yeah, I think we can pull some examples. They're all going to sort of just be, we are leaning into this sort of pro-development, pro-housing, all of those things. That's how we're going to have to get there. And so we can always walk things back. We can adjust numbers on tables and whatever else. But if you want to get to 10%, right?
You can give us a holistic view with view of what's available in town, right? I mean, you're able to using context of where we are to give us.
Have you seen our Affordable Housing Committee plan? Okay, have you seen that?
I have read through it.
All right, because that's a potential departure point for you to evaluate that. It's a small town, all right? And we want to do this like Woodbridge wants to do it in keeping with our feel of our community. But that's actually, it's a very good plan. I read it during the Fountain Street discussion, application. So take a look at that. That could be helpful.
Yeah, so then we'll plan on having some options for different levers that you can pull for the February meeting.
Nick, any comments to finish this particular?
Nothing.
So Chris, that'll be on the agenda, right? You're good? You got it. And you always do what we need done. Thank you. All right.
Just don't have a voice.
I know. Number 2, scheduled meeting dates until January 2027. Chris, I looked it over. It looked okay to me, but some commission members are changing it tomorrow night. So do you have to know it now?
I have to have something in by the end of January.
All right, let me get back to you on that. Let's do it on email, just people can weigh in on it. All right, it looked fine to me, except that I think the April one, I'm not gonna be around, but maybe Aaron can chair it, possibly. We'll see. Let me take a look at it, you know, I know you have to get that done. All right, I know it's a problem. Scrog, Andy, you want to say something? Your last Scrog report?
I think I might have already given my last scribe report, but I'll do it again.
Sure.
So the last meeting that I attended was in December, and as had been my practice for the previous year and a half or so, I forwarded the agenda and the materials in advance of that meeting. As I recall that meeting, the sole item on the agenda was this matter. And we subsequently got a letter from the chairman of the Regional Planning Commission indicating that there was neither a negative intermunicipal impact nor a negative impact upon the environment of the Long Island Sound.
Andy, thank you for your report and for your long service to the town of Woodbridge.
You're welcome. And just a reminder, Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, somebody needs to be appointed for the next meeting, which is next week, I think.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
But you needn't be appointed for somebody to attend, so.
All right.
If I get the link, I'll send it to you.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that, and again, your service to the community. And our work session, 2 final remaining items. Report regarding the Housing Committee. Kathy, can you do that? You can do that, right?
Yes, I
Yeah.
could do that. We were pretty active last month, so I do want to report that last month, on December 4th, the Housing Committee sponsored a training informational session on affordable and fair housing, as well as an update on HB 8002, which is now known as Special Session Public Act 25-1. So we have to get used to saying that. It was well attended, and even by land use officials like throughout the region, because our commission is required to plan and zone for the town and for the region in which the town belongs to. So we have to keep that in mind. And I would really encourage commissioners to watch this session. It was recorded, and particularly to understand your role going forward in this housing growth legislation, because the core function of this legislation is to bring structure to the housing planning process, and it does fall under the purview of TPC with the first selectman. And although we're in the second wave of the plan submission, I believe we don't submit the housing growth plan, I think it's June 2029. There's going to be a series of planning functions that are going to be occurring leading up to that. And the most immediate will be that by July of this year, the commission will need to adopt regulations allowing for transit, community middle housing developments and mixed-use developments, subject only to a summary review. And under the bill, transit, community middle housing developments are residential buildings 2 to 9 units, like duplexes and triplexes and townhouses. And for further training, there is going to be a training that's sponsored by the Connecticut chapter of the American Planning Association, and I would recommend that people could attend this. They're hosting a training for land use officials, and that'll get into more specifics of this legislation, and that's on January 22nd. 8:30 to 12 at the Crown Courtyard by Marriott.
Is that going to be recorded?
I don't know.
So I'll see you there. You go?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Kathy, one more question. I don't mean to step on any final comment you were making. Under the new regulation from the state, there's this component that's going to get paid a lot of attention to, where towns kind of go it alone, or they work regionally with people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything to add to that, other than the fact that we are aware of that?
I could give you the timeline on that. Let me just get my...
Because that is something that will be affecting us as a town.
Yeah, I have this handy dandy little thing, implementation chart. by December, end of this year, OPM is going to come out with statewide and regional housing growth plans. And then by June 2027, the COGS will determine the town's affordable housing goals. And then 30 days from that, you got to determine whether or not you want to choose regional or you do your own housing growth plan.
So we have like a year and a half to, it's fast to determine that, right?
Yeah, well, it
Okay,
depends how you
okay.
define that.
No, I understand. No, but just in terms of points people, this is fast.
Yeah, this is,
So-
it's not like, you don't have to think about it to.
No, we think about
the
it
point-
now.
The point I'm trying
Not
to make
tonight,
is,
but
it's not
not-
like,
yeah.
it's, okay, it's June 2029. No, there's things that
It's
are going
fast,
to be
it's fast.
happening,
All right.
so.
I interrupted you. Let you finish your thought on that.
Now, is there any other questions on that part? And I just have a couple other comments. So in closing, I just want to say that it's really been an honor to serve on this commission. This is a role I took quite seriously, and while I am disappointed that I won't be continuing my service, I just remain grateful for the opportunity I had to contribute to this commission. And before I go away, I just wanted to leave the commission with something that really stuck with me from my trainings that I attended. And this is from Attorney Dwight Merriam, who spoke about the profound responsibility we have as planning and zoning commissioners, and that we must be the voice for the voiceless. Those who are not present in these rooms, those who do not attend public hearings. Yet these lives are the ones that are most impacted by the decisions we make, and this includes individuals and families that are in need of housing options, and particularly affordable housing. And I just want to note that here in Woodbridge, we have hundreds of households, more than 340 households that are one paycheck away from housing instability. And even beyond our borders, there's people in the region that could really benefit from having access to a community like ours, a high opportunity community like ours. And another thing, Attorney Merriam also emphasized that, planning and zoning commissions, they have a responsibility to address the failures of the private market. Left to its own devices, the market does not produce affordable housing. And so we have to be, it's incumbent on you guys to adopt regulations that are going to enable the creation, because without that, it's just not going to happen. So I do hope that, you do this, you roll in it back for the moratorium. I hope you move forward very, very swiftly. And then just one other thing, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge our former chair, Rob Clay, because he really was an inspiration for me to be on this commission. And I just felt that he led this commission through some challenging applications, and I just felt that he should be recognized for his leadership. And I just feel like, like no one just said anything about it.
Kathy, thank you very much for your comments, and also thank you for your service to the town of Woodbridge. I also believe you didn't miss any of our meetings during your service period, so I do appreciate very much your attendance and your thoughts and your passion for Woodbridge, our town, and for what you stand up for. So thank you very much. Final comment on the work session, report on the zoning enforcement officer. Chris, did you have anything? You are welcome to take a pass for the next meeting, but if there's anything we should know, please share.
There isn't really anything zoning-wise that's been going on. Not yet.
Fine.
Do we need, I don't remember, oh, I'm sorry, never mind. It's resolved.
Correspondence received, anything did you, I know you did some handouts, anything that we need to
I
look
will
at?
copy it's just been horrendous.
I know.
I mean,
It's been very tough for this commission for the past 3 or 4 months.
I mean,
And
it's
I
been tough for
appreciate-
you guys, but it's been tough
Very tough
trying to
for staff.
handle all the other stuff.
We understand.
No, I don't think you guys do, truthfully. I don't think a lot of you understand. how much goes into this. And, you know, as Kathy said, with Rob Clee, it was not happy that he left and there wasn't any recognition. Because he did give. And he got trounced by people who came in and spoke against him. And they didn't know what he put in. And this town would not be in the shape that it is in terms of many things without him. And, you know, nobody stood up for him. And that was wrong. You need to just not knee-jerk sometimes. You need to take a little bit of time. And when I tell you I need 2 weeks, I'm not sitting here twiddling my thumbs. I have other boards and commissions that I work with. And I need time. I am one person. That's all.
Chris, thank you very much. You are heard. You're heard. Thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate it very much. Approval of minutes, we'll put that for the next session, and I know you're working on them, Chris, thank you very much. Paul?
Move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.